This is a video overview of this knife, the Everyday Modified Wharncliffe by Steve Karroll. This is a reverse Tanto grind, and this is everyday commentary. I picked up this knife at a knife show this past weekend, and I feel a little guilty for doing it. It's the second Karroll knife I've owned. I sold the other modified Wharncliffe that I had. It was a nice knife. It carried well. The pocket clip kind of drove me a little crazy. And the overall shape of the knife, the shape of the blade, wasn't something I liked as much as I thought I would. But when I went to the knife show, Steve had this knife laying open on his table. And that is a gorgeous, gorgeous blade shape. It's a sort of a combination of a reverse Tanto and a modified Wharncliffe. It gives you a little bit of belly, it gives you a little bit of piercing ability, and then it just has this very aesthetically pleasing sort of grind to it. Steve's grinds have gotten much more sophisticated in the past year since I owned his original knife. I know that he's been working on a model like this for a while. This just happens to be a sort of an upgraded or updated version of his original knife. There's the maker's mark, and there is the steel designation. Steve puts a really good edge on his knives. Ooh, I mean, it's just like, it's sticky sharp. You can see there that the lockup is nice and early. That's one thing that I think is a big improvement from the other model I had. It was a little bit sticky. This one is nice and smooth. The pivot is nice. The show side is translucent jade G10. I really like it. It's a nice material. It looks nice. As you can see right there, Steve put a little bit of like a bamboo pattern into it. The reverse side is all titanium. The pocket clip is titanium. If you can tell, the titanium pocket clip has been reshaped. Steve's old pocket clips were flatter, and the tip was much lower to the knife, the body of the knife itself. He's angled this up a little more, and he's given a little more space in there, which means that while the pocket clip is not as tight as the old one was probably too tight. This one I can get in and out of my pocket without looking. The old one I had to, pay a little bit of attention to. There's a couple of other differences. He's improved or changed the way that he's cut the lock bar. The lock bar piece right there, it used to be 2 cutouts, which was probably 2 shots on a drill press, and now it's just 1 solid piece. He's made all of his Torx bits on the knife the same size, making it easier to take the knife apart. He's improved the design of his thumb studs, and his thumb studs were good before. I actually like these a little bit better. The placement, you can get a good, nice wrist-free thumb flick to open up the knife. The last little touch that Steve did to make this knife really quite outstanding was, if you notice, the grind lines match up with the handle. And you can see what I mean right here. Watch this top grind line, the one for the main bevel, as it folds into the knife. Ready? Right there. The handle is cut so that it matches up with the grind line, and it does that on both sides. And this is just like one of those little touches that makes the knife look nicer. Sometimes when knives are closed, it's almost as if the entire knife being closed, the way it looks when it's closed, is an afterthought. For example, this is a pretty expensive knife too, and the grind line gets bisected by this little hump. It's not a big deal. It has no impact on functioning, none whatsoever. It's just one of those things that makes the knife look a little less aesthetically pleasing. And if this was a production knife, I wouldn't care. And if it was a cheap knife, I wouldn't care. But this is a custom knife. It's expensive. And having all of those nice little touches, like things that add up and line up like that, it does make a difference. It makes the knife look nicer in your pocket. It makes the knife look nicer sitting on a table, which is probably one of the reasons why I came over and bought it. And overall, I really like the knife. As I said, the lockup's nice and early. The pivot's relatively smooth. It's still got to be worked in. I did some work on the knife in terms of loosening up the pivot and putting some nano oil on there. So once that seeps in, I'm sure it'll be nice and smooth. Now, as it is, it's not terribly hard to open. The D10 is nice. You can hear the D10 right there. And overall, I really, really like the knife. I like the size of the knife. I like the shape of the knife. I don't think that it's an exaggeration to say that Steve is heavily influenced by the designs of Marcin Schlisch. As you can see, this is the Spyderco Techno. This is Steve's knife. And there's, very similar in size, very similar blade thicknesses, which is to say, gigantic. Even the jimping is similar. And this is a massively thick knife. Both of these knives at their spines are just huge, tremendously thick pieces of steel. This is S35VN. This is CTS XHP. So there's a little difference there. One other similarity between Marcin Schlisch and Steve's knives is this little cutout right here on the top of the knife. As you can see on the Techno, it gives your finger access to the jimping, which otherwise would be either flush or buried in the handle scale. Here, it's these knives. Same thing. It's just another one of those little touches that's really interesting. You can see the lineage of the knife coming down from the Schlisch design to Steve's design. The knives look nothing alike. They have very, very little in similarity to them appearance-wise, other than their size and the blade thickness. But there are these little touches that if you know what to look for, you can see them. And it's fun to find them. It's like a little bit of an Easter egg. So I hope you enjoyed this overview, and a review of this knife is coming soon.